Hi, Miller.
Hello, how are you?
Great. So it looks like we've got you in your truck, do we?
You do, yeah. I'm camping with my family this weekend, so it's a bit of an informal setting. I apologize.
No, that's so gracious of you to be willing to interrupt your camping to join us. Now, I've asked
Oh,
everybody just to wait a couple of minutes, but I'm going to handle the introduction now, and
sure.
and then so they may trickle back over the next minute or two. Sorry, I know
Sure.
it can be. Whereabouts are you? What part of the world are you in?
In Arrington, near Qualicum.
Okay, and is cell reception generally okay?
Oh yeah, no, it's. I have full bars. It was working. I was listening to your previous person, and then it
Oh,
just
great.
cut out. So
Okay, well, for those of you who have joined us, I'd like to introduce you to Millar Montgomery. Millar is a member of IATSE 891. He is a production sound mixer. And Millar began working in production sound in 2003 after completing a one-year program in audio post-production for film and television at Vancouver Film School. After he completed his one-year program, he realized he preferred working on set than in a studio and set out to work on Vancouver film sets. Over the course of his 17-year career so far, Millar has had the privilege of working on a wide array of projects from documentaries and reality TV programs that have taken him around the world to local independent films, network episodic television, and big budget features. He will be quick to tell you that no matter what production is shooting, a sound person will be there, and working in sound can send you off on great adventures. 7 years ago, Millar and his family decided that Vancouver was too much for them. They relocated back to the island where both Millar and his wife are from. Since moving back, Millar's had the opportunity to work on many film projects as well as documentary and reality work, and is looking forward to the growth of Victoria film scene. We all are, Millar. And he's returning to work on Air Force, the Air Bud franchise, sorry, Air Force, Air Bud franchise this summer. So great, wonderful. Now, what we've been doing so far, Millar, and let me know if this is going to work for you. Generally, I do an introduction, and then I pull away for about 15 minutes while you talk about what's required to get into your business, what a day in the life looks like. And as you are talking, our attendees are going to be asking questions through the Q&A, which you don't have to deal with. We're going to, give you whatever time you need. And then I'm going to hop back on and we will move through the Q&As together. Does all that work for you?
sounds great.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to you now, Millar. So the screen is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Millar Montgomery. I'm a sound technician, as I think was described to you. Please excuse my settings. I'm in my van at the moment. We're up camping with my family, so it's not the most picturesque of background, but it is what it is. So yeah, I started doing sound quite a few years ago. My beginning came kind of out of the blue. I was studying at SFU, and some of the courses I was taking, we were messing around with recording to quarter-inch tape and making documentaries with sound, and it was really enjoyable. And I saw an opportunity at a school to take more of this. I knew absolutely nothing about what I was doing or what I was going into, and at the other end of that school, I knew a lot. So my career wasn't something that I was dreaming about for a long time. It just sort of began. It just took a left turn. And ended up in a really, really cool place. The work that I did when I started, which was a while ago, it was a really tough beginning. There wasn't a lot of opportunities. It's not like now where there's a lot of projects going on all different levels. It was hard to find that work, and the exact type of work that I do now is called production sound. So I record people on set. So all the sound effects that are gathered on set, all the dialogue, all that stuff is done by my team and I. And then that work gets passed along to a post-production team, which will work on that audio more and add the music and everything else once picture lock has been created in the edit process. So yeah, I'm right in the middle of everything when the film was being shot. And there was no schooling for that when I started. There was schooling for audio post-production, which is what I did, which would be more of the editorial and music composition and sound effects aspect of it. But to do the production sound, there was nothing, and I had to learn a lot of it on my own, and then rely a lot on mentors. You know, as you meet people, they're gonna spend time with you, and if they like you and trust you, and they want to be generous with their time, they'll teach you quite a bit. And that's how I basically filled that knowledge deficit that I didn't have for the production audio. Was just by learning on the job, reading as much as I could wherever I could find it, and then trial and error on a lot of small projects. You know, you think you know what you're doing, and then you try something and it doesn't work, and you realize that was not the correct way to do it. So, you know, in that sense, it was a really interesting journey, because you start with very little knowledge, and then you build it up. You know, and this kind of foundation gets built by yourself. You know, it's kind of rewarding, actually. Now the work that I do doesn't focus so much on documentaries, and it doesn't focus so much on those independent films that I used to do. You know, circumstances and lifestyle and everything change, and now I find myself working on commercial sets primarily. So that would be you know, television and movies that's for broadcast. And it's a different world. You know, it's a much bigger beast to be around. And there's a lot of competing interests and egos and everything else. You know, it's a different level of play, and it has its rewards and it has its challenges. And some things are great and some things aren't. But at the end of the day, it's still a neat job. And if you can find a positive in the moments at work, it can really be pretty neat. It can be pretty neat for sure. In terms of getting started nowadays, I still strongly think that schooling is the best place to start. You know, you need whatever path you think you want to take. If you can get that base knowledge in there of how things are supposed to be, and you can start and learn from the people that are teaching you, right, and find those mentors and find those teachers that are willing to be generous with their time, then you can really get a lot of knowledge at the beginning, and it'll help you a lot for getting more opportunities. You know, because when you meet someone and you have some knowledge and you seem receptive to learning, they'll be much more generous with their time, and all of a sudden you are in a relationship there where you can learn a lot from that person. And in a highly technical field such as sound, it's really important to find those people, and to, you know, as you get more knowledge, to help other people as they're coming up behind you, to reciprocate that relationship, because it's very important in this field, particularly. In terms of the post-production work, it's actually in some ways very similar to you know, modern music production. You know, it's a lot of computer work, it's a lot of editing, it's a lot of using plugins. You know, depending on what you're doing, people are using synthesizers and instruments and warping and shaping sounds to make a soundtrack. You know, and it can be a really super creative outlet. I haven't done too much of that in recent years, but my schooling was in that, and it was really rewarding. You know, time just melts away as you you know, get lost in what you're doing, which is, you know, it's a pretty neat thing to go through, to have that creative outlet. You know, but then, you know, as in all things, as you become more professional and more in demand, and the kind of passion projects melt into, you know, for-profit jobs, pressure builds, obviously. A lot of post-production work these days, in sound as well as in post-production editing, and also special effects. Time gets crunched, you know, and they can be pretty high pressure jobs, which is why the more knowledge you have and the better you are with your equipment and understanding what you're working with, as the clock starts to, you know, push you more. If you have that base of knowledge to understand what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier, you know, when things aren't going perfectly, to dig yourself out of that hole, because this is such a technical field. Knowing how your computers work and how software works, and you know, having more than one way of accomplishing the same objective is really important. You know, otherwise you just can't keep up. You know, and then you're spending your time, instead of focusing on the craft, you're spending your time problem solving, when, you know, the more you know, the faster the problem solving is done, and you can get back to, you know, the task that's important at that moment. Yeah, I mean, and also the other really, one of the neat things about sound is the kind of access that we're granted to the world of production. So if you're filming on a documentary, for example, the crew might be 3 people. I've worked on jobs where it is literally a 3-person crew. There'll be a cameraman, there'll be a sound person, camera person, I'm sorry, I shouldn't genderize that. Camera person, a sound person, and a director. And really that's enough to make you know, a theatrical release documentary. Like that's really enough. You find yourself, you know, wearing a lot more hats than you would in kind of bigger productions, because, you know, when you fly into a location, often the director is also what they call a fixer. So they're trying to run the show. So they might be trying to figure out where your rental car is, where the hotel is, how to get to the next location. They're talking to the cast about, you know, when they can get them for interview, which means that the camera person and yourself have to do a lot of work, because it's just the 2 of you. You know, you're humping dozens of cases around. You're having to help build cameras. You're having to fix your own equipment as it's breaking. You know, it's a really fun experience. You know, and then you couple that with neat locations and going to kind of faraway places, and it's pretty neat. You know, I mean, you'll be really tired while it's happening, and once you have a chance to sit down and kind of unwind for a few minutes, you can look back on those experiences, and they're pretty neat. You know, so we do get that access. And then in terms of more commercial projects like episodic or scripted drama, you know, you're right in the mix. Typically we run a 3-person team on those jobs. So the sound assistant, you know, they are right in the personal physical bubble of all sorts of people, when they're putting microphones on, when they're talking to the director. Like there's a lot of interactions that you have, you know, and it's the most junior position in that team, but it's a neat job. It's hard work, but it's neat. You get to have these interactions with people that most people in the crew don't get to have. Then the next level up would be the boom operator, who's the person that holds the microphone. And there's a lot of misconceptions about that job. It doesn't need to be a 6'5" bodybuilding man to hold a microphone pole. There's a lot of people of all different physical sizes and genders that do that job, and they all do really excellent work. So, you know, if you look at that position and think, well, I can't do that, that's not something that I can do, it truly could be, and it's a neat job. When the cameras are rolling, you know, everyone on the entire set is quiet. Most people aren't there. You know, the reality is that when you're filming a scene, most of the crew isn't welcome by the camera. It's just not where they should be, which means that it's the person who's operating the camera and the boom operator and the actors. That's the floor, that's the room, you know, and you're in a really kind of sacred space. And it's sometimes, you know, you're making fluff pieces and it's not that interesting, you know, it's just filler content. And then sometimes you're on projects and those scenes can be really, really neat. Like you're right in that intimate space. It's live theater happening feet from you all day. It's a really cool job. And then now my job would be the head of that department, of those 3 people. But I don't get access to the actors like the assistant does, and I don't get to be in that on the set like the boom operator does. So I'm much more removed now, but the experiences are still very, very cool. You know, like I'm watching the monitors and I'm getting an HD video feed of what the cameras are seeing, and I'm hearing the actor from a microphone that's often 3 inches over their head. You know, it's like really personal and intimate, and it's really, you know, one of the first looks at the film. It's apart from the directors and the producers and sometimes the DP if they wear a headset. It's just a handful of people that are hearing the film and seeing the film, and it's happening all the time. It's quite cool. In terms of stress, it gets hard because you're managing a tremendous amount of equipment on top of your crew, you know, and you want to be, even when you're tired and it's a terrible day, you gotta take the effort to be nice to people. And it's, you know, the world could be caving in on you, and it feels like you're not going to be able to keep your head above water, and you gotta keep a smile on and just focus on getting your work done. And then once the wave passes, you know, the way that film sets work is you go through these waves of panic and rush, and then there's time to breathe. You know, sometimes my job, it feels like I can't breathe for little bits, and then it comes back, and yeah, it's an interesting role. It's something I've been doing for 7 or 8 years now, and yeah, I've done every possible job in our department now in this field, and I feel lucky to have had the chance to see it all and experience everything, and I wish that people would give it more of a chance, because we don't get the attention that other departments do. You know, like the people want to be a director when they go out of film school, or they want to produce, or they want to operate the camera, and those are all really, really awesome things to do. But there's more to the craft of filmmaking than just those roles. And, you know, if you give it a chance, it can be a really rewarding job and career and lifestyle. You know, because lifestyle is this type of work really is a lifestyle. You know, when you are on a job, it is big hours, and you are just shattered by the weekend. But those projects have a start and an end date. They're not endless. So depending on how you want to structure your work life, you can get on a 4 or 5 month job. Like that's been my kind of world that I've been living in the last couple of years. Is I've been trying to get 10 episode television series, and they will shoot for about 5 months, and it's a 5 month run, and then it's hard, and then I get to be home with my family for however long I want to be before I book another job. So it's quite immersive in terms of when you're doing it, and then you get a chance to step back. And, you know, like right now I'm parked in the middle of Vancouver Island because I get to have time with my family, which is great. So
Wonderful, Millar. Well, thank you so much. And have you got time for a few questions?
of course, yeah.
So we've got somebody asking, is there a cheap way to get great sound for no budget or low budget short films? I have problems with sound in windy conditions.
Well, that's a really simple question to answer. So your sound for windy conditions, if you have ever seen a microphone in a film set, you know, when they, like a gag when they show the microphone, often there'll be a big fuzzy thing on that microphone. That fuzzy thing has a really important purpose. It'll baffle the wind. So the terrible sound you hear from the wind is the diaphragm of the microphone just being overwhelmed by wind, basically. So if you can baffle that wind and take the wind off of the microphone, it'll just disappear. It's kind of magical, actually. And there's lots of products. There's a brand called Rycote, which makes all sorts of stuff. And then in terms of getting good sound on no budget, it's really easy. You just have to put sound as a priority on your project, so that you know, it needs to be up there with everything else, you know.
Yes.
In terms of getting your day and shooting your film and getting the angles you want, those are all really important. But if you're in a small project and you don't have money to do a lot of looping or anything like that, then you need to prioritize your audio to be up there with everything else, so that when you're shooting close, you know, and you've got wind protection on it, and then you don't have to have the highest quality equipment. It definitely makes a difference, but you don't need it. If you can't afford it, then just get something that'll fill the job and put it as a higher priority during your project. You know, think about what you're doing and listen to what you're recording, and you know, put them on equal playing fields, and you'll end up with a great looking picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a great sounding film. And
Sorry, Miller, I think you're breaking up here.
it'll save yourself in the edit.
Miller, let's see if that signal
Oh,
comes.
sorry. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hello?
Your picture's a bit frozen, but we hear you.
I can hear you. And
Okay. Well, let's not worry too much about the video.
Should I stop the video and just try audio only for a minute? Or?
Sure. Let's see if that makes it any better. Okay. So the next, I'm sorry, were you finished with your answer to that question?
How's that?
Okay. Well, let's move on to the
Yes,
next.
all done. Thank you.
Let's move on to the next question. What was your?
Yes. Yeah, all done.
Okay. What was your collaborative process like with Zack Snyder on Sucker Punch and Tim Miller on Deadpool?
Oh, so those are interesting. So on Sucker Punch, the role that I had was a behind the scenes role. So they don't do it as much anymore, which is unfortunate. But there was a while where they were embedding film crews within the film crew, and you would be on the film set, you know, 4 out of 5 days a week, filming the process. So I wasn't part of the main shooting crew, but the unit that I was on had incredible access to that set, and just it was really neat. It was a really neat thing to see, because I got beyond. You get to move beyond the production set and then into the pre-production world as well, you know, in terms of getting to see how the art department's working and everything else that goes on those shows.
Right.
And then on Deadpool, I was on Deadpool for 3 weeks. A friend of mine had just had a baby, so I was covering for him for 3 weeks. I don't think I even talked to the director, to be honest, in that time. It was a really big project.
Yeah.
And Ryan Reynolds, I got to talk to a couple of times. He was a very nice and generous person.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Let me see. What is your portable sound rig setup? Recorder, boom mic, lavs, and headphones? What audio recording program do you use on set? Pro Tools?
Yeah, great question. So Pro Tools is not something that is used that much on set. We use Pro Tools on set typically for when we're going to be doing playback. So say you're filming a scene where you want to, you know, have a bunch of background people dancing in time to something, or you have someone who's on camera who's got a pre-recorded piece of music that they're going to lip sync to on camera. We would use Pro Tools for that. In terms of recording on set, it's pretty much all hardware. We don't use software really at all. And when I say hardware, what I mean to say is that we use like a dedicated recorder that has all the software built into it. There's a great company called Sound Devices, which is an American company. There's another company called Zaxcom, which is American. There's another company that's Swiss. They make stuff all over the world. And these dedicated recorders have everything in them that you need now. So there's microphone preamps, there's faders, there's mixers, and then it records everything internally. So my portable rig is a Sound Devices 833. I like Sennheiser microphones for booms and for lavalier mics. I use Sanken COS 11 mostly, and then Lectrosonics radio mics. It's expensive stuff, and you can get things that are cheaper if you need to go cheaper, and you probably will be totally fine with that stuff as well. So don't think that it has to be the best if you're just beginning and you don't have the money for it.
Okay. Hector is asking if there's more opportunities now, and are there schools for production audio? If so, which ones?
Yeah, I think well, I mean, COVID has really screwed everything up, as I'm sure everyone would agree.
Yeah.
Right up until COVID, like basically right up until the end of February, first week of March, productions were ramping up. Like every single year there was more work, and every single job was bigger and longer and more demanding. Like everything about the whole field was just getting bigger. So, you know, in the fall when all the series would kick off and everyone is working and you need an additional person to come in that day or someone's sick, it was a huge struggle. Like a major daily stress was just getting crew. So, you know, right up until COVID, I think that the opportunities really had never been better in terms of starting a job and going from someone who's really new to someone who's got experience and can live off of that income was happening so fast. It was really incredible. Now I don't know what it's going to be. And then in terms of schooling for production audio, as I was saying, there really is very little that you can learn. The best thing that you can do is to learn about recording, because that's at the heart of it. That's what we're doing. You know, it's the same as when you go and mic up a band. You know, the microphone placement is critical. Getting your gain structure before you record it is critical, and what you're recording it to, so that you've got the ability to manipulate it later, it is critical. And those are all the same fundamentals as you would use in a music recording studio. We're just doing it mobile and laser focusing on basically human voice. So.
Okay, Millar, it's a combination of a couple things. It sounds like we're starting to lose your the sound from your phone here as well, and we have way more questions than we're going to be able to get to today, sadly.
Okay.
So let me see if there's even one that really kind of. How about just one last one? What requirements does an individual need to get into IATSE Sound Union?
So this is an interesting thing, and it's something that amongst our members we've been kind of trying to figure out, because the barrier to entry to the union is pretty high. It's kind of like this catch-22 where you need the experience to get of the days. Like you need days on professional sets to qualify for membership. But how do you get those days without experience? So. You know, I think that the best thing to do is to learn how to record. I think then you need to go out and find independent filmmakers, and you need to find student films, and you need to practice. You know, read everything you can and practice recording and try to make it work. And then as you get better at that, reach out to bigger productions and try to get hired. You know, we're all freelancers, and really. So if you can be nice every day and do a good job, and then build a reputation of yourself for doing good work, then you'll get better jobs, and then those days will start to lead towards your, you know, which I personally think we need to reevaluate, because, you know, as I was saying, pre-COVID, it was so busy that we needed more and more people all the time, and I think that we need to make it easier for people to get in if we want more people to come in. You know.
Yeah. Understandable. Now, Millar, let me see, the last thing before I let you go, are you active on any social media platforms? Is there a way for somebody to either follow you or reach out to you that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on, I think it's called LinkedIn is kind of I mean, I have Facebook, but I don't really use it,
Okay.
to be honest.
Are you a Vancouver
And
resident?
I don't do Instagram and those kind of. But you know, you could. Yeah, I work all over the place. I'm working in Victoria quite a bit for the remainder of this year, and then more than likely I'll be back in Vancouver for 2021 for projects. So I bounce around.
Okay, so maybe LinkedIn for folks that are on that platform. I know it's not hugely popular with the film industry, but those of you on LinkedIn, you can look up Millar Montgomery there. Millar, thank you so much. In the middle of a family vacation, you've really gone above and beyond. Sorry the conditions weren't perfect, but we were thrilled to have you and thrilled to hear your experience as a sound guy.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. Sound person. Doesn't need to be just a guy.
Sound, yeah, sound perfect. I gotcha. Okay.